Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Welcome to Box City. So the reason I'm doing a Q&A today is that in a few days' time, I'm gonna be moving to a new apartment, which I'm really happy about. I'm gonna finally have my own studio where I can make my videos rather than doing them all in the living room, which is great. This is all happening because of your support, so thanks so much for watching all of my videos and tapping like every time. It really helps me out a lot, and I'm so excited for this next phase in my channel. But right now this place is a complete mess. I thought it'd be a perfect time to answer some of your questions. So let's see what questions you guys ask me, and I'll keep answering them until I finish my tea here. Many players would love to reach your level, but realistically, very few will. This becomes frustrating for many. What advice do you give to them? So my advice would be to focus on whether or not you're improving rather than comparing yourself to me or anyone else. There came a point where I realized that all I can do every day is just try and improve and be the best musician that I possibly can. I realized that even if I never reached the level that I wanted to achieve, I would have enjoyed the journey so much that I would have no regrets. Once you learn to love practicing and improving, you'll just be inspired by great musicians rather than frustrated. What is your outlook on the channel? I couldn't imagine how much creativity you need to constantly make every video the next mind-blowing, crazy, extravagant idea. Love your videos, man. Thanks. I'm so happy with where the channel is. Obviously, I always wanted to be growing, but I'm so grateful to have such supportive viewers like you. Coming up with creative ideas for each video is definitely the hardest part, but I kind of have to do that because otherwise YouTube probably just won't recommend it to you, and you might not even get a notification when I upload it. But one thing I'm really happy about recently is that I don't get as worried when my views go down, because I'm more just focused on the quality of the content. That's the only thing that I can control. So as long as the content and the videos are really good, then I'm happy with my channel. What's your favorite / proudest moment or composition you've created whilst collaborating with another artist / YouTuber? My overall favorite was probably the battle with Davie, just because I was a really small YouTuber at that time, so it was really cool to be collaborating with a massive YouTuber like Davie. But I also really loved the collabs that I did with Xander, because he's just such a creative person who comes up with all of these crazy ideas for scripts and videos, and we always end up spending way too much time on them and throwing in crazy things like the Holy Book of Bass and creating all of this bass lore, which is just so funny and so fun to do. Can you be a good musician even if you never learned any music theory? Yes. Just think about some of your favorite bands and musicians. I think there's a really good chance that some of them have never studied any music theory in books or anything like that. In fact, a lot of them probably learned all the songs they know by ear, which is actually a really good way to internalize harmony, melody, and rhythm, even if you haven't necessarily studied it from a book. I've studied some music theory in both the classical and jazz worlds, although not nearly to the extent that someone like Jacob Collier has. And I do find that it helps me quite a lot when I'm learning stuff or when I'm writing my own stuff, but if you don't know any music theory, don't let that stop you from creating and playing. Are you Davie503? I've always wondered this. Firstly, Davie503 is playing a light blue bass that you've never seen me play. Secondly, he's not wearing a pinky ring. And lastly, his voice sounds like Darth Vader.
I am ready to battle with you now.
So all of this is undeniable evidence that I'm not Davie503. How is Davie503 doing? Are we gonna see him again? Is he gonna do a bass battle with Davie504? So I've actually never spoken to Davie503 face to face, but he seems like a pretty good bassist. As far as the battle with Davie504, Davie's video did reach 300,000 likes, and he said that if it reached that goal, he would do another battle with Davie503, so... What was the most hardest thing to play from the beginning of your career? It took me a long time to get my double thumb down. It's probably because I learned to play like Flea first when I was slapping. Slapping like Flea makes double thumbing pretty much impossible, so the most frustrating thing I ever had to learn was probably classical thump, and that took me about 2 to 3 months of really intense practice, about 3 hours a day. Your bass tapping skill is godlike. How did you get so good at tapping? And how did you learn your scary bass tapping? Is there any instruments set up that ease the process of tapping? The first thing that I actually did was just mess around and have fun and try out some cool sounding chords with tapping. And during that phase, I just got really interested and passionate about tapping, which fueled my ability to do exercises like I started learning classical etudes like this. And also tapping songs like Overjoyed by Victor Wooten, and then finally I started just writing my own stuff and making it more and more complex each time so that I would improve my own skills. So in terms of setup, just make sure you're using a low action, i.e. your strings are close to the fretboard. That's going to make it way easier to tap. And then also use new strings if you can, but I know that can be really expensive to keep getting new strings, so if you don't want to do that, just boost the highs on either your bass or your amp, cut the lows a little bit, and that's going to help you get that more clear and bright sound which you need for tapping because you're playing chords. And what string gauge and tuning do you use? So for 99% of my videos, I use these strings right here, the GHS Super Steels, and I really like their tone. They sound great for slap especially. I'm almost always playing in standard tuning, E, A, D, G, unless I'm playing my piccolo bass, in which case there's all kinds of crazy tunings I could be in. What is the normal career path for someone wanting to be a professional bass player, assuming they're good enough? Things have changed so much that there isn't really a normal career path for musicians anymore. My teacher told me that he used to make a living just playing jazz gigs in his local city, and I just don't think that's really as possible anymore. Mainly because there's way fewer venues now that have live music. Things have also changed so much because of sampled instruments becoming so realistic. Back in the 60s, you know, most of the top hits would have a bass guitar on the recording, but now when you listen to the top 40, it's pretty hard to actually find a song that has real bass on it. Even a song with a really cool bass line like Attention by Charlie Puth, he actually recorded that using a keyboard which triggered bass samples. All of this means that it's harder now to make a living as a session bass player who just records on other people's songs, or just a live bass player who plays with local bands. But on the flip side, there's some really great opportunities online now, and I'd say the career path now is that you have to be good at multiple different things. Start an account on a website like Fiverr to do some session work, play in a band or two, set up a YouTube channel, an Instagram and a TikTok and try to gain some followers there. Unless you're incredibly successful in one area, it's a lot more realistic to try and be good at multiple different things. Can you do a gear rundown? Sure, it's actually really easy. It's just my bass plugged into an Apollo Twin audio interface, which goes into my laptop, and then I have Logic Pro. And 99% of the time I'm just using 3 plugins, which is compression, just lightly, a little bit of EQ just to boost the highs to give there a little bit more clarity, and then just a little bit of reverb, which sounds really nice when I'm doing slap. It just gives it that little bit more spice. What would you say to someone who loves bass guitar and music but isn't sure they should pursue it as anything more than a hobby? I think you have to figure out how passionate you are about music and how much time you'd be willing to dedicate to it. If you have a deep passion for music, then I think you should try playing some gigs with bands or making YouTube videos and see how it feels. Is there a specific method or rudiment you would recommend over others for building up finger strength, mainly in regards to bass chords? So the best exercises I've ever done have always been around the cycle of fourths, usually scales and arpeggios. I've never really done specific exercises for bass chords, but I'll show you some fingerstyle exercises that have helped me a lot. If you don't know any music theory, then all you need to remember in order to do the cycle of fourths is just to move 5 frets up or 7 frets down every time you play the pattern. You can use any scale or arpeggio that you want and just do it in 5-minute chunks for 30 minutes a day, every day for a month, and you'll be amazed at how much your technique is improved. How does a 15-year-old such as myself go from having no bass guitar or skills and becoming pretty decent in a couple of months? So the first thing you need to do is show your parents my videos so that hopefully they'll buy you a bass. Once you've got that out of the way, assuming you don't have a private teacher, I'd say the next thing you should do is watch a YouTube video that covers basic fingerstyle technique. Once you can do a little bit of fingerstyle, get a tab book of your favorite band and learn some of the easier bass lines that are in that book. When I first started playing bass, I got the tab lab book for the Red Hot Chili Peppers' greatest hits, and I learned songs like Californication, Other Side, Soul to Squeeze. And if you do that same thing but with your favorite band, and you just do that for maybe an hour a day for a couple of months, I think it'll be pretty decent. Once you asked us if we would be interested in bass tutorials, so any tutorials soon? The way things are right now, I feel like if I try to add bass tutorials onto the content that I'm already making and just trying to maintain this current channel, figure out how to beat the YouTube algorithm, it might be a little bit too much for me. But having said that, I do really want to give advice to bass players and help people learn, which is why I did the stuff with Scott's bass lessons that I hope will be released soon. And I also think maybe when I have my new studio, things are going to be a lot more efficient and I might be able to put out more content, including tutorials. When does the video end? Right now. Thanks so much guys for watching. If there's anything I missed, it might be in the Q&A video that I did a few months ago. Also, I'm gonna be posting studio progress updates on my Instagram story, so make sure to follow me on there. And in my next YouTube video, I'll be in my new studio, so I'll see you then.